Ladies and gentlemen, we now come to a very special moment in today's program. It is my honor to invite our esteemed chief guest, the Honorable Minister of State, Independent Charge for Science and Technology and Earth Sciences, Dr. Jiten Singh Ji, to deliver his special address. Sir, please.
Principal Scientific Advisor to the Government of India, Professor Ajay Sood, Padam Shri, Professor Ashutosh Sharma, Chairman ISRO and Secretary Department of Space, Dr. V. Narayanan, Director General CSIR, Dr. N. Kalai Selvi, Secretary, Ministry of Ayush, Dr. Kotecha, Secretary, Department of Biotechnology, Dr. Rajesh Gokhale, Professor Abhay Karandikar, Dr. Rashmi Sharma, Vice Chancellors, senior faculty members representing different institutions across the country, senior officers from the Government of India, members of the scientific fraternity, ladies and gentlemen. First of all, I have to congratulate you all and also exchange greetings on the National Science Day. And as was being said, it was 78 years ago that the Raman effect came to be known to the world. And we have been consecutively every year observing this day as the National Science Day to commemorate the great work done by C.V. Raman and also to celebrate his legacy. But this year, this day comes with a difference. And that is, I think, for the first time, the Prime Minister of India has made an appeal to the common citizenry to celebrate it in much the same fashion as they celebrate any other festival in this country. And he's made a special mention of it. And he made a special mention of it in his monthly Man Ki Baat broadcast, imploring upon each one of us to at least feel like a scientist, if not a scientist, at least a student of scientists or a learner of a scientist. And when Prime Minister says that, this amounts to the declaration of intent of the government in place. And in other words, this is also a reflection of the high priority that the political dispensation of this country is currently giving to science, innovation, and everything else associated with this. And I think I will not be exaggerating when I say that over the last 10 years, the manner in which the science, innovation, research, startups have been promoted has actually enabled the different ministries and departments of science in the government sector to occupy a center stage, which rarely but happened before. Most of the science departments and even the science secretaries were hardly known in the corridor circles of the central government. It's no longer so. And again, it's primarily because the Prime Minister makes a personal outreach to the members, to the officials, to the experts working in this department. And to my mind, if you sum up the last 10 years, I would say it has happened in three ways. A, there's a virtual resurgence of the science ministries and departments in the government sector, which I was saying a few moments ago, was rarely but seen earlier. Secondly, there has been a quantum leap in the outcomes, which has been talked about earlier, which I may refer to a moment later. And thirdly, there's a wider recognition of the work being done by these departments, by these ministries, and by the scientific fraternity at large. Recognition both domestically as well as overseas and abroad. And this has not happened simply overnight. There's been a tremendous amount of hard work put in behind that. And we never had dearth of talent in this country, or potential in this country, or passion in this country, or commitment in this country, or imaginative, innovative creativity in this country. Possibly what we lacked was an enabling milieu which is expected from the policymakers and which has happened after 2014. And the world is today acknowledging this. And since all of us, like good researchers and students of science, have learned not to talk without figures or without statistics or evidence, you pick up any sector. You pick up space. This morning we were having a bilateral with the Space Commissioner from the European Union, and others there would bear me out what he said. He said the next century, this current century or 21st century, is going to be the century of space and the century of India occupying this space. And that's why that's happened because we have succeeded in proving to the world what we could do through mission after mission. So it's Chandrayaan 3, whether it's the solar mission, whether it's the very recent SpaceX, and no longer in a position to, no longer constrained to pick up leads from others, but in a position to offer cues to others. And that has now been begun to be acknowledged very candidly by those reaching out to us, as I was citing the example of the meeting this morning. If you take the example of the sector of biotechnology, a lesser-known department thrown into a remote corner of an ITBP office. If you ask Rajesh Gokhale what is his address, he will have to write care of ITBP. That was the kind of scant priority being accorded by the earlier governments. But suddenly this department has been pulled out from that backyard with the personal indulgence of Prime Minister Modi. He launched Mission Suraksha, and on day-to-day basis he was monitoring the progress in the trials of vaccine. And when you have that kind of an abundant sport, the confidence, the motivation also gets multiplied manifold. And the result is that his team came out with the first ever DNA vaccine and gifted it to the world. And I always, being someone associated with the world of medicine, I always take fancy in telling the youngsters in whatever institutions I go, because the generations have changed. It's not easy for them, for these teenagers and students of today, what it means to be a pioneer in vaccine. Because my generation has gone through a transition phase where India was not taken seriously even for curative healthcare, even for the therapeutic healthcare. So if one felt sick, one waited to get worsened before seeing a doctor. If you got well, 5 rupees ka prasad chadha diya. If you didn't get well, apna karma hai. So you had homemade remedies and placebos. The same country today, which was not taken seriously by the world for its therapeutic or curative healthcare, is today being acknowledged as a leader in preventive healthcare. That's a huge, huge departure. And I'm sure any medical professional of my generation would be able to appreciate that transition. It's virtually a 360-degree change. And now it's almost one after the other series of vaccines, HPV, so on, so forth. If you go to earth sciences, the other day I was telling Dr. Ravi Chandran, I didn't find him today, maybe he's busy there. I said till a few years ago, if you did a survey in this capital city of Delhi, just took a performer and asked the passers-by, where on earth is the Department of Earth Science? I'm sure many would fumble. answering that. Today, it has been virtually pulled out of that oblivion. Again, because Prime Minister, realizing this not once, but twice consecutively, in his Independence Day address, referred to deep sea mission. He did that in 2023, 15th August. He again did that in 2024. I'm not sure how many people would have actually realized that, but the very fact that he was saying so meant, A, that the government was giving it a priority, it was a flagship priority for government, and B, it could generate curiosity in the listener to actually try to dig out, find out, whether from your mobile or other source, what after all is deep sea mission or deep sea venture. And today, we are among the first few countries who have ventured into the ocean wealth, which is going to add value to the future growth story. If you look at CSIR, Dr. Kalai Selvi, the first empress of this huge empire. Earlier on, we mostly had emperors, being the first lady DG. And she has performed what many emperors couldn't have done. In the last few years, we have these success stories like Aroma Mission, which again found mention in Prime Minister's Man Ki Baat. And India, I was saying the other day, has given, through this mission, a new genre of agri-startups. And not only that, more importantly, which I hope we would be able to also carry to most of the youngsters, that you don't have to have a big PhD. Actually, the youngsters get mesmerized, get imposed when they see such a highly literate platform. They say, oh, I have to be someone as educated as Dr. Kalai Selvi, someone as scientific a brain as Padma Shri Ashutosh, to be a startup. But through this, I have to compliment you. You have exploded that myth. Many of your successful lavender startups are not even graduates. And that is the magic of a true startup, a sustainable startup. In fact, they have also managed, they have also motivated, or may I say committed the sin of getting some of the corporate boys resign their job and get back into them. And that is our exclusive domain, because we had confined ourselves mostly to IT because we didn't realize what was our exclusive sector. And that is one that you have brought to the world. The floriculture mission. The other day I came across, I remember when you started this, I think from Palampur and Jammu and 2 or 3, the directors told me, because out of my own curiosity, I try to, for my own learnings. So they said that's very difficult, nobody taking it up. So they got hold of a boy whose family was engaged in this flower business, a Sikh boy from Punjab. And his father had at that time undergone some training in flower decoration from Japan some 50 years ago. And therefore he used to prepare bouquets for the government functions in those times when the event managers were not so rampant. So we got hold of that boy. He privately confessed to some of the members of my team कि सर मुझे अकेला जा रहा है, लेकिन इससे बड़ा नुकसान ये होगा मेरा कि मेरी शादी नहीं होगी. Suddenly the boy is now turned into a big entrepreneur, supplying bouquets on demand for different kind of events. He's making a big fortune. And just 6 months back, he came to look me up with a wedding card. And I recalled, I said, तू तो कहता था तेरी फूलों के कारण शादी नहीं होगी, अब तो फूलों की सेज पर दुल्हन आ रही है. So what the point is that these are our exclusive domains, and through scientific evidence we can carry across convincingly the merit of these. No Western literature would help doing that. No Western publication would help doing that. As I always say, Indian solutions for Indian remedies, Indian treatment for Indian patients, and Indian data for Indian problems. So you can't cite a paper from nature to convince somebody that floriculture or innovation, what it's all about. You have to have your own innovative communication. And again, the intent of the government is so clear that we are today enjoying the freedom of doing what we think would be in the right direction. And I think if you just look at the last few months, the vote of account of this government, which happened just before the election, vote of account, I don't know how many in this room, but most of those in public life would understand, is meant to be just a working budget, because the actual budget is thought to be prerogative of the incoming government. So the outgoing government does not do it. They just present a calm-kaji budget. But and mostly, the political governments are fond of announcing freebies and sewing machines and laptops. But did you notice the vote of account of the Modi government? Weeks before election, what did it mention? It mentioned Bharat modular reactors. It mentioned space startups and said, when we come back, we'll give viability fund. It mentioned National Research Foundation and said, when we come back, we'll allocate separate budget for it. It requires tremendous courage, tremendous conviction, tremendous consistency on the part of a political government. And that is what we are witnessing. And soon after, the government came in for the third time, which is fondly described as Modi 3.0. The most important decision in the first 100 days was A, 50,000 crore allocation for National Research Foundation, B, 1,000 crore for Space Startup Viability Fund, Bio E3 policy that Rajesh was struggling for so many months and years, and Mission Mausam. So all these 4 or 5 decisions were part of the first 100 days. So you can understand how much of patronage we have at our disposal. Now coming to this year's theme, which Abhay was generous enough to discuss with me and also take my inputs, because usually the secretaries and the experts decide the themes, because the minister is supposed to only cut the ribbon and light the lamp, not do much of a thinking. But I'm glad that he took me into confidence. He gave 2-3 themes, and I said, if we coin it like this, it will encompass everything. So we have a very wholesome theme for the National Science Day today, which is that empowering Indian youth for global leadership in science and innovation for VIKSIT Bharat. So it has both the aspects: empowerment of the youth, who are going to be makers of the India tomorrow, preparing them for a larger global role, and at the same time, losing not the context of carrying their nation, their motherland, to the pedestal that has been envisaged for them. And therefore, this theme simultaneously addresses A, youth empowerment, B, youth capacity building, C, youth enabling for a global role, and 4, youth preparation to be the architects of India 2047. And as I said, this is one of the better times happening for science, if the best may come soon. From fragile 5, we have come to first 5. Startups was time and again being mentioned, from 350, 400 to 1.75, and rank 3. Publications, 1,91,590, rank 4. But what is more important, I would like to share with you, because I'm sure it's a matter of delight for all of us connected with the scientific fraternity, that the future projections indicate that we would overcome US in number of publications in the next 4 years by 2029. And of course, these are some of the lesser cited facts, because they are more pertaining to the scientific working, may not be of much interest to others, but they matter to us. And our patent filing is 64,480, but again, what is more important, as I said in the case of publications, is that 55.2%, because I was working out these statistics, 55.2% of patents are resident patents. I hope you will understand that you will be explaining to your morning walkers who say, "Arey साहब क्या किया पेटेंट किया? वो तो हरगोविंद खुराना वहाँ गया तब हुआ ना, चंद्रशेखर वहाँ गया तब हुआ, हमने क्या दिया?" This is totally indigenous. They didn't go out to file a patent. So more than 55% of the rank 6, we are ranking 6 in patent filing, but majority of them have lived in India, worked in India, innovated in India, and then filed a patent, didn't make use of outside resources, as might have been the case a few decades ago, which became a butt of joke for all of us. If anybody made an achievement in the scientific field, they would say, okay, kya kiya to kya kiya? America jaake hi kiya na, yahan to kuch nahi hua. So you have something to tell your children, the next generation. Look, we have everything here to offer. And another fascinating statistics, which I think would be a good media tagline as well. This year, every year at the 31st of December, they do a kind of a statistics survey of the top world scientists. So ending 31st December 2024, among the top 2% of the world scientists, as many as 5,352 were found to be Indians. That is something which was unimaginable till a few years ago, and that is something which the cynics may refuse to believe even today. But the figures speak for themselves. And if you just go currently, because I have tried to put across a few of the things which are not often talked about, sorry for deviating from the talking points given to me, but then I wouldn't have been able to share. If you see this year's budget, and I'll just take 1 minute to give you important figures. Some of the students can also take that. The DST, which is hosting this program, Professor Aves, has recorded 926% rise in budget in the last 10 years. In 2023, 2013 to 14, it was rupees 2,777 crore. This year's budget presented 2 months back, it was 28,509 crore. The DSIR, headed by Dr. Kalai Selvi, 2013-14, the budget was 2,013 crore, only 2,013. Today, it is 6,658 crore, plus all the private participation. The Department of Space in 2013-14 was rupees 5,615. It has recorded a rise of 138.9%, going up to 13,416 crore. The figures have multiplied. And plus, a huge investment from the private sector because of these space reforms. That's not been included. So if you take the whole pool, it must have gone. And that's the reason why space economy, which was just minimal, is today $8 billion US. And the future projections predict that we will be going up 5 times in the next 7-8 years to almost 44-45 billion. Department of Atomic Energy in 2013-14 was 13,879 crore. Today it has gone up many times, almost 170%, to 37,483 crore. And again, the budget announces that we are opening up to the private sector. And also, the Prime Minister reiterated that in one of his later addresses. And there also you'll have additional pool from the private sector. Department of Biotechnology, 2013-14 was 1,485 crore. Today it is 3,447 crore. And added to all this is the National Research Foundation, which the government has allocated 5,000 crore. But much more would be happening from the non-government sources, because the non-government sources incorporate almost 60 to 70% of this. And therefore, as I said, this is one of the better times happening. There's also a successful effort in synergizing all the institutions within the science and departments and science ministry, and also across that, among the education institutions, whether that be the IITs, NITs, IAS, and across the domains, whether it's artificial intelligence, green energy, climate, cyber. Till a few years ago, most of the world thought that Indians were not capable of discussing climate. When you talked of climate, वो इतना ही था कि मौसम का क्या हाल है. And that too, दूर दूर तक छींटे पड़ेंगे, आमतौर मौसम खुश्क रहेगा. Even that was a butt of joke. And I had the courage to say that on the 150th commemoration. The Honorable Prime Minister was also there. Today we have now arrangement in forecast, and people literally see their WhatsApp in the watch during the heavy downpour in Mumbai, Barsat, to decide whether to carry the umbrella or not. And that has given us, and now we are talking of climate concerns, we are laying down targets, net zero, 270, 50%, 230. And from women participation, we have gone up to women-led. I think the better part of the compliment is deserved by Dr. Narayanan and his team. They are no longer only encouraging women, as DST is still doing through programs like Jigyasa, Vigyan Jyoti. They are ready to bow down and be led by women. And the Aditya mission is being led by Nijar. She's from Tamil Nadu. And Chandrayaan's second head is Kalpana. So they have given up. They no longer need these programs. And that's why they are not adopting Abhay's program. They're already way ahead, and they have shown the way. But nevertheless, we have all such programs still very actively being pursued in the DST, and the PERS program, where 82 universities have already funded. And today, as you saw, 9 more universities being funded through PERS program at an amount of rupees 75 crore. And the IT, the TBIs, inclusive technology business incubators, you just now saw, 9 new have been included today, with a focus on Tier 2 and Tier 3 cities. And as usual, Dr. Kalai Selvi is always electrically charged. She gave me the privilege of flagging off an electric vehicle. So that is all done to commemorate the National Science Day today. And before I end, I think one suggestion I could add to this, that next year onwards, we could change the actually celebration of the National Science Day. Although this room is called Vigyan Bhawan, but that doesn't mean that it's only meant for science. And as Prime Minister once suggested, and we actually followed in the other departments, most of our conferences we are holding around the country, in ARPG, DOPT, we could hold a separate venue each year for holding the national level function of National Science Day, so that these ladies and gentlemen could also have the opportunity of visiting other parts of country besides Vigyan Bhavan. And that will also help us, carry science to different parts, because it does make a difference. It does make a difference because in North India, the space sector has generated interest in the last 5-7 years, because I only suggested that time to, I think Dr. Radhakrishnan was there. I said we have to move out from South. And the first 2 new centers we opened were in Northeast, Agartala and IT, and the Teaching Space Technology Center with post-graduation, etc., in Central University, Jammu. And suddenly you started getting startups from here. So we would then, in consultation with all these gentlemen and gentle ladies sitting on the stage, decide where do we meet next time, this year, and on this day. And that, I think, would also help us live up to the resolve of dedicating this National Science Day to the youth of this country, who are actually going to be there around to celebrate the National Science Day on 2047. Thank you.